In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Rightmove red flags. So if you're a buyer, some of the things to be aware of when you're looking at Rightmove listings. And if you're a seller, some of the things to be aware of so that you can hold your estate agent to account, because you want to make sure you've got a good listing. So I have a number of properties I want to go through, and they've all got various issues that I want to raise with you guys. And also, I'm sure you've got your own red flags. So if there are things that you always look out for, let us know in the comments below. So the first property I want to show you, and this is probably the biggest red flag for any property, and that is an old listing. So this example here, this was first listed in March 2022. We're now moving into June 2023. So that is a big fat red flag. Why hasn't this property sold? 2022 was a hot market, and if this property did not sell, that suggests there's an issue with the property when you go to view it, there's an issue with the seller, or the price is completely wrong. And if we actually look at the way this price has been manipulated over the past year, I would go with the latter. The price is probably the issue. So if you're the seller in this position, it's over a year in and you still haven't sold, firstly, get rid of this agent. This isn't anything against your move, but if you haven't sold and you've now got this history on your listing, you want a brand new listing. So go and sign up with a different agent so you can get a brand new listing. Secondly, start getting realistic about price. If you haven't sold at this price in over a year, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So come back on with a new agent and with a more competitive price, and also with better photography. I don't know if it's coming across in the video, but this is, well, it looks underexposed. It looks like someone's applied some sort of vignette on these photos and they're quite dull, and I've tried to make the center slightly brighter and it just doesn't look great. So the photos for this, that's quite a nice photo, but generally these photos that's overexposed, they're average at best. And if you're selling a house for £700,000, I think it's worth investing in an estate agent that has premium photography. So that's the first listing I wanted to show you guys. The next red flag to be aware of if you're a buyer, but also if you're a seller, is if the estate agent is using anything other than the front of the house as the main photo. So usually we see this in two instances. One, when the house is ugly, in which case I would say still show that as your main photo. You want to be open and honest with your buyers. But two, the main reason I see estate agents start using other photos, for example, in this one, they're using the back garden as the main photo to sell a house, is the listing has been on for a couple of months and it hasn't sold. So the estate agent says to the client, oh, it could be the main photo. Let's try and keep things fresh. Let's try one of the other photos. So if your main photo of your house is poor, get your estate agent to reshoot it. And if they suggest using a picture of your garden or something else as your main photo, just go and sign up with a different agent, as they don't really know what they are on about. There is very, very few examples where using an alternative to the main photo will be the better choice. Now, there will be a rare instance, but for the majority of cases you'll see, it's literally the estate agent trying to show that they're trying to do something. If the property hasn't sold after a couple of months, again, it's probably the price, and not so much a case if you need to use a different photo as your main photo. Now, this next listing has a number of issues, which I'll probably get to as we go through, but the main one is not having a floor plan. No floor plan. If you are getting a floor plan done, but it's not ready yet, don't go live with your listing. All of the traffic comes in the first few days. So if you are paying for a floor plan or your estate agent's including it as part of their package, but it's not ready, do not go live with the listing. Always wait until it's ready, because that's when you're going to get the most eyes on your listing, and the floor plan is essential. So that's the first major problem with this listing. The second one is the main photo is absolutely miserable. I mean, when you look at this, I know obviously you're not shooting the most attractive property in the world in the best possible condition, but it's not a great photo. They've shot it when the sun is not on the front of the house, so it looks really, really dull. You've got the for sale sign side on, bang in the middle of the photo. It's framed really poorly with the neighbour's house sticking in. It's also, despite the fact it's a sunny day, you've got clouds in the photos, which they may want to Photoshop out into something a bit nicer, like a blue sky. But yeah, certainly reshoot this main photo. And when you go through this listing, just with a little bit of time, they could have at least cleaned. I mean, if we go back to this main one here, the floor's dirty. Even if you're selling a renovation project, you can still go around and sweep up the floor, make it look a bit less of a mess. I mean, what is this photo here trying to show? You're trying to sell a hedge? It's just ridiculous. The photography is so poor. And just because you might be selling a renovation project or a cheap house or something that's in probate doesn't mean you can't take, this is more a message for estate agents, take a bit of time, and sellers, take a bit of time to make sure your house is clean and presented in a bit better way than this. And the other thing as well, if you ever see listings like this with missing flooring, the reason that is a red flag is probably something has happened in that room. Either a leak is the most common, or the condition of the room was just so poor they got rid of the carpet. So that's a red flag and something to keep an eye out when you go viewing, to see if you can spot why that room may have been in such condition that the flooring had to be removed, and they'd rather market the property with no flooring than with dirty or existing flooring. And the same with this room. You've got a dirty kitchen. They could at least wipe the worktops before taking a photo. So that's just another example of a very poor listing. But the key thing I wanted to get across was the missing floor plan. You need a floor plan on your listing, and you need a good floor plan as well. If we take this one here, you think, oh, this is going to be a good floor plan, but it's been uploaded in the incorrect resolution, so you can barely read what the dimensions are. So I've got some better examples later on, but that's just a quick example there. What I actually wanted to show you, my issue with this listing, is when the main photo is like this, an up close shot that is clearly hiding something. We know if it's this close up, the seller is trying to hide something. So let's go to Street View on this and see if we can figure out what it is. So here we go. They've got a massive hedge in front of the house. And then this, I know this area because I used to live down this way. This is one of the busiest roads in the area as well, with a zebra crossing that's beeping all day long. So lots of things to be hidden for that particular property. And it's no wonder that it's still on the market 10 months later, really. Your price is wrong. You've got some things going against the property based on the location. Your price is wrong. Even if you change the main photo, you can tweak these all day long. It's not going to make any difference. The price, the value proposition just is not there for people that want to buy it. If the price is lower, people will trade off the other things, the other issues. And I have another example here of a poor main photo. It's a lovely sunny day. Because of where the sun is, it's behind the house. It's creating a horrible shadow on the front of the house. So you have two options of this. Reshoot the main photo on a different time of day when hopefully the sun's come round and is lighting up the front of the building, or if it's a property that doesn't actually get the sun on the front of the building, shoot it on an overcast day so you can get a balanced exposure on the front. And then you can always Photoshop in some blue skies on there. And this is another example of a floor plan that could be so much better. Not including the dimensions on the rooms is a real pain for buyers, because many of us are trying to envisage what we're going to put in these rooms. So we need to know the dimensions. So the floor plan is half helpful, but include the dimensions on the floor plan. So you don't want a missing floor plan, you don't want a floor plan without dimensions, and you don't want a floor plan that is uploaded at a resolution that is completely blurry and you can't read any of the pieces of information. Now this next one is going to be controversial with some people, and that is I see using an online estate agent as a red flag. And the key reason for this is I just assume the valuation is usually woefully wrong. And this is based on my own experience. So over the past few years, I've sold 3 different properties with various online agents. I've used Strike, who funnily enough is who this listing is with. I've also used Purple Bricks, and I used doorstep agents as well. And I found all of them had the same issue, which is despite the fact they say they have local valuers to send out, those local valuers aren't local enough. And they don't understand the intricacies of your very, very small local area and how the house prices can vary. And every time I've used one of these estate agents that are online, their valuation has been based on freely available data, but has also been massively wrong. When I sold last year, Strike overvalued my house massively based on what I knew that properties on the road had just sold for, and also from speaking to local agents what the market was like. So I had to actually reduce the price before we even went live, because the price that Strike gave me was going to be wrong and the property wouldn't have sold. So you have to be aware that any property that's coming on with an estate agent, there is a good chance the valuation is probably wrong. But the same can be said for traditional agents as well. Pretty much all properties that are coming onto Rightmove at the moment are overpriced, and that shows in the data that the Rightmove house price index is showing prices going up, while the official land registry is showing property prices going down. But I think online estate agents are some of the worst culprits for the valuation being completely wrong. The other thing is estate agents, or online estate agents especially, don't seem to have a great reputation. So I have seen people on forums, and also occasionally I've met people who don't like looking at listings that are being listed with online estate agents. I saw one guy who refused to just flat out book viewings from anyone that was selling via Purple Bricks, as you were forced to use their online platform. Now, for me, I think that's a bit extreme, because you're missing out on one of the biggest purchases potentially in your life because you don't like a platform. I mean, just get over yourself if that's the problem. But there are people out there who are reluctant to use online estate agents. They don't like booking things online. They don't like submitting their offers online. They prefer to work with a traditional agent. So selling with an online agent can be a red flag for some people. So something to be aware of. Now, my personal advice is, if you are going to use an online agent, you need to meet 3 pieces of criteria. Number 1, you need to be selling a run-of-the-mill house, your typical house you'd find on your average estate. If you've got kind of a one-off house like I'm showing you here, which has been sold with strike, do not use an online estate agent. Number 2, you need to be happy doing the viewings yourself. I wouldn't expect an online local agent to know enough about my local area and my property to be able to do the viewings. And number 3, the valuation. You need to know exactly what your local market is up to, what prices are like, so that you can price your property realistic based on the research you do, not based on the valuation that an online agent gives you. But for most people, I would say a traditional agent is probably going to do a better job overall. And if you are selling a one-off property like this, do not use an online estate agent. So they will be saving, let's say this was with a traditional agent as a 1% fee, and they were selling at 900,000. They might save themselves £9,000 by using an online agent. But this photography isn't terrible. But if you're selling a house that's nearly £1 million, you could have photography that is so much better than this, and you will get a better price overall, as it's going to, that £9,000 you save, I think you'd easily recoup in an increased sale price with a better presented listing. Like I say, that's terrible photography, to be fair. So you have to think what type of property you've got. Have you got a property that's going to sell itself, your average run-of-the-mill estate property where there's huge demand at all times and it's always going to sell? Or are you selling something like this which is higher value, in which case, I mean, it's hard to take a bad photo of a property like this. It's actually got a bit of character to it. But somehow certain people will still take photos that don't do it justice. And I would say that's when you don't want to be using an online estate agent. So I know that was a bit of a longer section for that particular red flag, but if you're a buyer or a seller, those are some of the things you need to be aware of. So going back to the very first property we looked at, I want to show you another, this isn't a red flag, but it's something I find really, really frustrating. And that is virtual tours that don't actually give you a virtual tour. They are just pictures with music over the top. They are a complete waste of time. So if an estate agent tries to upsell you a virtual tour, which is not a virtual tour, don't do it, because it's not helpful for anyone. And secondly, virtual tours that require you to submit your information. If I want to look through a property, I just want to take a look through the virtual tour. I don't want to submit my information so that the estate agent then contacts me and just gives me a load of hassle that I don't want. So if you're going to get a virtual tour done, which I highly recommend, as I think they're really, really good, don't do one like this that requires you to sign up, and don't do one that actually doesn't offer a virtual tour. And the final red flag I want to cover in this video, again, this is another listing that's decided not to use the property photo as the main photo. They've used an interior photo, and that is ones that are sold for sale by modern auction. This is a brand new property. So why on earth is this being auctioned? That says red flags all over the place. So usually when it says for sale by modern auction, in the majority of cases, it just means you won't get a mortgage on this. We need cash buyers because there's something wrong with the property or something to do with the property. So be super wary of for sale by modern auction. So just 2 things to wrap up this video. A poor listing with lots of red flags can actually be a fantastic opportunity for buyers. So if you do see a listing that does have some red flags, do your own research into it. Really find out about that property if it has the potential that you want, because those red flags might be putting off other potential buyers, but they're not actually red flags if you look into them further, or they're not red flags for you. And secondly, if you have found a property that you are interested in and you're going to view, I've got a video now in front of me which shows you how you can do some deep dive checks to find out all of the things that the seller could potentially be hiding. And I'll see you guys over there.